3:47 in the morning. Your phone rings. One of the most powerful cartel leaders in Mexico has just been arrested. DEA agents think they've won. Federal prosecutors think the cartel is finished. They're wrong, because within minutes, the cartel calls you. Not a hitman, not a smuggler, not an accountant, a lawyer. And over the next 10 years, you'll become one of the most trusted people inside the cartel. More trusted than some of the men carrying guns. More trusted than some of the men moving the money. The problem is, the higher you rise, the harder it becomes to leave. By the end of this story, you'll become the one person the cartel cannot afford to lose. And that's exactly when your life stops being your own. It all started with a client who walked into your office on a Tuesday afternoon. The men at the restaurant are polite. That is the first thing that unsettles you. You expected something harder, something that felt like what you imagined. Instead, good food, careful language, and two men who listen more than they speak. They have a situation, a property in Sonora flagged by federal financial investigators. The ownership structure, layers of shell companies across 3 countries, needs to survive scrutiny. They give you 48 hours, no paperwork, no formal engagement, no retainer. You drive home and spend the night arguing with yourself. You know exactly how to do this. You've always known. The question isn't skill, it's choice. You make the call. You do the work. You walk them through the solution. Clean, structured, defensible. The man across the table watches you the entire time. When you finish, he says, "You are very careful with your words." You say, "I'm a lawyer." He almost smiles. 2 weeks later, a wire transfer arrives. 3 times your highest ever invoice, for 48 hours of work. And you understand, sitting at your desk on a Tuesday morning, that you haven't just taken a case. You've passed a test. The problem is, you still don't know who was testing you. 3 weeks later, you're about to find out. The work expands, new clients, higher stakes, slightly further past the edge of comfortable each time. Within 6 months, you are representing men whose names appear in intelligence reports you will never be allowed to read. You begin to notice things, meetings in rooms without windows, clients who arrive with people whose only job is watching the door, phone numbers given verbally, never, written down, and always when you ask certain questions. You don't need that for the legal work. They are right. You don't. But you're starting to understand that the legal work is only part of why you're here. The day they take you to the safe house, everything changes. You are picked up before dawn, 40 minutes of driving. The city falls away. A compound outside town, walls, cameras, guards who don't make eye contact. Inside, 3 men you've never met. They are relaxed in the way that people are relaxed when they have never needed to be afraid. That is more frightening than anything they could have said. They tell you they want to bring you in more formally, not as outside counsel, as something closer, something with access. Then they show you a folder, documents for a case you're handling. But buried inside, a list of names, a state attorney general, 2 federal judges, a senior Interior Ministry official. Beside each name, a number, monthly, regular. You close the folder. You say nothing. You finish your work. You are driven back. You sit on the edge of your hotel bed and understand with complete clarity that you now know something that can get you killed. Not might. Can. And they gave it to you on purpose. To see if you could carry it. To see if you were ready. You never mention the list. Not to your family. Not to your colleagues. Not to anyone. 3 days later, a message arrives. No greeting, no signature. Just one sentence. Good. You understand how this works. And for the first time, you realize you've already been accepted. You have heard his name for years. Everyone has. It appears in congressional testimony, DEA press conferences, front pages. The name has mythology attached to it. You are about to meet the man behind the myth. You're told on a Wednesday evening. Thursday morning before sunrise, you are in a car heading somewhere mountainous. The compound, when you arrive, is nothing like you expected. There are children somewhere. You can hear them. Dogs, flowers near the entrance, the smell of food. And then, him. Smaller than the myth. Jeans. Plain shirt. He shakes your hand and offers coffee like he means it. He asks about the extradition proceedings you've been working on. Specific questions. Legal questions that show he's read the documents himself. Then he asks a different question. A very specific question. If the United States requests extradition tomorrow, how long can you delay it? You answer. 6 months, maybe 8. He shakes his head. Not enough. The room goes quiet. Every person there understands what happens if he ends up in an American courtroom. You spend the next 3 weeks doing almost nothing else. You study every filing, every treaty, every previous extradition attempt, and eventually, you find it. A flaw. A jurisdictional conflict buried deep inside an older case. A technical argument so obscure that most lawyers would never think to look for it. When the request finally arrives, you use it. The process stalls. Then stalls again. Months become years. For the first time in a very long time, one of the most wanted men in the hemisphere sleeps without worrying about extradition. Before you leave, he says, "Everyone around me wants something, but you want something I can trust. You want to be useful, that I understand." He extends his hand. "You have my trust." 3 words. More valuable and more dangerous than anything else he could have offered you. Because from that moment on, you are no longer just a lawyer. You are the reason he is still free. The calls change. Before, they called when there was a legal matter. Now they call when there is a crisis. The distinction is everything. 6 weeks after meeting the boss, a senior cartel figure is arrested in Guadalajara. Front-page news, television helicopters, federal prosecutors holding press conferences before the paperwork is even finished. Everyone believes this is the breakthrough. Everyone except you. Because within an hour of the arrest, you're looking at documents nobody else has seen. And you find something. A mistake. One signature. One federal agency stepping into authority that legally belonged to another. Small. Technical. Easy to miss. Exactly the kind of thing you've spent your entire career learning how to find. For 3 days, you barely sleep. You build an argument around that mistake. Then another. Then another. By the time prosecutors realize what's happening, they aren't defending the case anymore. They're defending the investigation itself. The evidence becomes contested. The timeline becomes contested. The arrest becomes contested. Months later, a case that was supposed to become a national victory begins falling apart. The man walks free. Inside the organization, something changes. Before, you were a trusted lawyer. Now you're a weapon. The calls become constant. Arrests, raids, extradition requests, government investigations. Whenever disaster appears, the same question gets asked: where is the lawyer? An extradition treaty being negotiated between Mexico and the United States suddenly becomes important. Certain language needs to disappear. You advise someone who advises someone who advises the negotiating team. Weeks later, the language changes. Nobody knows why. A federal investigator starts getting dangerously close to one of the cartel's financial operators. You analyze the threat. 3 weeks later, the investigator is transferred. You didn't make that happen. You only gave your opinion. At least that's what you tell yourself. And for a while, you believe it. At some point, and you can never identify exactly when, you become the most informed private citizen in Mexico. Not the richest, not the most powerful, the most informed. You know which judges are compromised, which politicians are protected, which police commanders can be trusted, which ones are secretly working for rivals. You know the real owners behind legitimate, businesses. The real purpose behind legitimate investments. The real reason certain investigations disappear. You know enough secrets to destroy careers, enough secrets to collapse governments, enough secrets to start wars. And the most dangerous part? People keep giving you more. Because trust is addictive. The more you prove you can carry a secret, the more secrets people hand you. One evening, sitting alone in an apartment that officially belongs to nobody, you allow yourself to think, something you haven't thought in years. What if you left? Not dramatically, not as an informant, not as a witness. Just leave. Move somewhere else. Start over. Become a normal lawyer again. The thought survives for less than 5 minutes. Because then reality arrives. Every judge, every politician, every banker, every cartel figure, every rival organization, every secret, every name. All of it lives inside your head, and every one of those people knows it. The door is not locked. You could walk out tomorrow. The problem is what happens after. Because every person you've ever protected would wake up asking the same question. Is he going to talk? And men like these don't spend their lives wondering. You look at your phone, 3 missed calls. The first feeling isn't fear. It's responsibility. And that realization terrifies you. There is a word people use now, not to your face, about you, the one who holds the thread, the person who knows how everything connects, the person whose absence would create chaos. One night, 2 powerful factions inside the organization are on the verge of tearing each other apart. A dispute, money, territory, ego. The reasons don't matter anymore. What matters is that both sides are preparing for war. And war inside an organization like this doesn't stay internal for long. Operations collapse, people disappear, governments notice, everyone loses. You are brought in, not as a lawyer, not as an advisor, as a referee. For 6 hours you sit between men who trust almost nobody. And somehow they trust you. You propose a solution, a compromise, an arrangement neither side likes, which is exactly why it works. The conflict ends before the first shot is fired. The next morning, the boss calls personally. Not to congratulate you, not to thank you, to ask your opinion about something else, then something else, then something else. That is when you realize you've crossed another line. People are no longer paying for your legal expertise. They are trusting your judgment. And trust at this level is more valuable than money, more valuable than loyalty, more valuable than fear. Later that year at a private dinner, you overhear the boss's wife speaking to another woman. She doesn't know you can hear. He is the one who keeps all of us safe. For a moment you feel proud. Then something colder arrives. Because keeping them safe and keeping yourself safe have become the same thing. And neither one is fully under your control anymore. Your law office still exists. Your license still exists. Your legitimate clients still exist. But they no longer feel real. They feel like props, remnants of a life that belongs to someone else, someone you used to know. There is no raid, no dramatic arrest, no shootout, no betrayal, no moment where everything comes crashing down. The ending arrives quietly. On a Tuesday morning, you are sitting in your office, coffee on your desk, a legitimate client scheduled for 10 o'clock, traffic moving outside the window. A completely ordinary day. Then your phone rings. And before you even look at the screen, you know exactly who it is. Not because you've seen the number, because after all these years you can feel it. The same way you can feel your own heartbeat. You stare at the phone. And for the first time in a very long time, you hesitate. Not because you're afraid, because you're tired. Tired of carrying secrets. Tired of solving crises. Tired of being the person everyone depends on. For a moment you imagine something impossible. You don't answer. You let it ring. You walk out of the office, get in your car, drive to the airport, disappear. Start over somewhere nobody knows your name. The fantasy lasts less than 5 seconds. Because reality arrives immediately. You know too much. The judges, the politicians, the bankers, the police commanders, the businessmen, the rivals, the allies, the people who owe favors, the people who collect them, entire careers, entire organizations, entire lives, all stored inside your head. And every one of those people knows it. That is when the realization finally arrives. The cartel never trapped you. Not really. The money didn't trap you. The power didn't trap you. The secrets did. Every secret made you more valuable. Every secret gave you more access. Every secret moved you closer to the center. Until one day you looked around and realized there was no way back out. Not because someone locked the door. Because you became too important to leave. The government knows you exist. Some of them have known for years. A few would love to prosecute you. Others would rather keep watching. Because a man like you is more useful free than imprisoned. The cartel knows that too. That's why nobody threatens you. Nobody has to. The cage is already complete. And you built every wall yourself. One case, one favor, one secret, one compromise at a time. The phone rings again. You finally pick it up. I'm listening. A voice begins talking. Another crisis. Another problem. Another situation that only you can solve. And as you listen, you glance around the office. The law degree on the wall. The family photo on your desk. The life you once thought you wanted. It all feels strangely distant, like it belongs to someone else. Someone you used to know. The call ends. You place the phone back on the desk, and for the first time you understand the truth. You achieved everything: power, influence, respect, access, trust. You became the most important lawyer in one of the most dangerous organizations in the world, and in exchange, you gave away the one thing that made any of it worth having: freedom. The cartel never locked the door. You stayed because you became the one person who knew where all the keys were. Power is not something you own. It's something you carry. And the longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. Until one day you realize you can no longer put it down. When do you think a person becomes truly trapped? When they lose their freedom? Or when they gain too much power to walk away? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe. Because next week you'll live another life.